We actually moved out here 19 years ago from Stillwater. We lived in Stillwater for a while, then we moved out here. And this was a family farm. We bought the farm from my grandparents. And when we moved out here, it was a farm that was used for cattle and crops and things like that. So we started planting trees that first year when we moved out here. I grew up on a tree farm. My parents owned the tree farm in Stillwater, where Menards is now. And so I didn't know anything else other than Christmas trees growing up. When we were little, we started helping plant trees. And then through the whole process of planting and taking care of the trees, we learned all the aspects up to the selling of Christmas trees. And so for a long time, I thought, when I grow up, I don't want to ever raise Christmas trees because I had enough of it. And somewhere in my 20s, I decided that's not too bad a business. And I think that sap that was in my blood started boiling again, and it was interesting. And so my wife and I and family started planting trees.
I've always wanted to live on a farm, and so when Neil asked me to marry him, he said, well, we will someday have a tree farm. So I had to think about that, but it was a wonderful decision, and we've raised our children here and many foster children, and now we have the third generation coming. This is the second generation of Krueger tree farms. We've been growing in the valley for over 40 years, and so we're proud of being able to include our family and our friends.
One of the most popular trees is the Fraser fir, and we have several fields of Fraser. The second most popular tree would be balsam. This tree happens to be a Fraser, and it's really popular because it's a short needle tree, and yet it won't shed its needles. So it's got that traditional look. It's easy to decorate, it's easy to hang ornaments on, and again, the big plus is that it does not shed its needles. Now, we're one of the only farms in the Twin City area that does have cut-your-own Fraser. Most of the Frasers are native to North Carolina, and now we're developing strains that grow here in Minnesota. And the Fraser, again, it's got the aroma, almost as good a smelling as a balsam, and yet it still holds its needles much better than any other tree. One of the things I think to look for is to make sure that as you look at the tree, you want to make sure it's got good color, and many times people make the mistake of pulling on the needles, and they break off. Well, in cold weather, needles will break, but what's important is once it gets into a warm spot, you can pull on the needles, and they should stay on the tree nice and tight. Out in the field, an 8-foot tree looks relatively small. Most ceilings are 8 feet tall, so that's why we put the size on there so you know exactly what it is. The 2 main weekends after Thanksgiving, Santa's here, and he's a real Santa. He walks around the fields and talks to the kids and gives out little goodies for the kids. We have a warming house that you can come in and have some cider and have some conversation, talk about trees or talk about Christmas or talk about whatever you like. And once you select your tree, we try to make it as easy as possible. We not only shake it to get all the old needles and grass out of the tree, but we also wrap it, and then we tie it on your car also.
The first 3-4 days, the trees can take gallons of water. So you need to make a fresh cut on the bottom when you bring the tree in the house and give it lots of water the first couple of days, and then be sure to watch the water every day after that because they'll drink water.
Many times, we have, I think, 3 or 4 generations of families that have come to the Kruegers to get Christmas trees. We have one family in particular now that the mom and dad come out, their kids, and their children's children, and they pick out 4 or 5 trees every year for their family. So we see the same families coming back year after year, and that feels good. And And we get a lot of good comments. We get letters back from customers saying, how beautiful their tree was and how many comments they've gotten on their trees. We feel real strong about setting our farm up as a tree farm or as open space forever, and so that's why we're putting it into a conservation easement through the Minnesota Land Trust. That way, when we're gone, the farm will still live on, and hopefully we'll continue to teach generations of people about good stewardship of the land.
You have to like what you do. You have to love what you do in order to be a tree farmer, and I think it's a wonderful life, don't you?
I agree.